Welcome to the course, guys. We're on chapter 1 and we have a ton of material to get through, and I want you guys to get the biggest bang for your buck and for your time. As we all know, time is money. So let's not dilly-dally. Chapter 1 is all about throwing you into the course, telling you what we want you to expect and look out for in the education that we're gonna be providing you. What is this course supposed to be doing? We're gonna also give you guys a bit of gear advice, our favorite lenses, our favorite shooting accessories, and we're even gonna give you our entire second shooters gear guide, basically all the equipment that we require our second shooters to have, and the transitional equipment in terms of what they need to move into lead shooting as well. So let's jump into chapter 1. Let's talk first about why we're here. What is this course, Photographing the Groom? Well, our mission in our studio is consistently incredible images. That is our goal with Lineagers of Photography. And to do that, we have to provide our lead and second shooters with the training and the education that they need to basically have a large creative toolkit whenever they walk into any type of scene and any situation. So keep in mind that when it comes to the job of photographing the groom and the groom's portraits and the groomsmen and that whole area, oftentimes, especially for studios like ours, this is a second shooter's responsibility. There might be some timelines that allow for the lead shooter to go in and do this, but more often than not for us, this is our second shooter's responsibility. And so this course is designed for not only lead, but second shooter training. Now, what are the things that we're gonna be covering? Well, of course, we're gonna be covering everything about gear. And guess what? Because this is a second shooter's design course, we're trying to keep everything incredibly approachable. That means that for lighting, we're using simple pocket flashes. And I'm gonna tell you my favorites, but you guys can pick these up for super cheap, 50 bucks, 80 bucks, 100 bucks. Depends on whatever one you want, but it's very accessible. We're gonna be teaching you how to control the light using basic primes, using basic gear. So this is approachable for anybody. In fact, the entire wedding series, while I love shooting on ProPhoto, we chose not to shoot on larger pieces of gear that might be harder to acquire because we wanted this entire course to be very approachable. So our entire series is shot with very minimalistic gear that you guys can acquire on your own. So we're covering gear. We are also covering the communication aspect. In fact, I want you guys to tune in and make sure when I am directing and posing and guiding my clients, my subjects into their positions, pay attention to this, because that is a huge piece of what we look for in our second shooters is the ability to communicate. And what are they trying to communicate? It's the posing. We're trying to communicate and direct our clients into not only good looking poses, but poses that look natural and are a part of the day, as opposed to just kind of doing random poses that really don't fit within the flow of the wedding day. Again, the goal of our shooters is capturing as much journalistic and in the moment images as possible, but having the tools necessary from gear to communication to posing knowledge to be able to guide whatever's happening in front of you when it's not happening the way that you need it to. Okay. Beyond that, we're of course going to dive into the lighting side. How are we lighting and shooting each scene? We're going to cover the camera side, and we're going to throw in an entire bonus chapter on post-production. We're going to go through all the images. We're going to process them so you guys can see how we get to the final images, how we do it quickly in a solid workflow. So that's what we're covering, and the overriding purpose is to help you develop that creative tool chest. Having a creative tool is great, but I want you guys to walk away with this with a whole chest of creative possibilities so that in any situation, regardless of who you're shooting, what time of day, where it's at, you guys know exactly what tools to pull out of your creative tool chest in order to get the best imagery possible. Let's go on to the next video. Our 3 favorite lenses for groom prep. And guess what? If you had to give me just one of these guys, it would be the 50mm prime. And there's a couple different reasons for this. One, it's a fast lens. It can open up to 1.4 or 1.8, and really there are plenty of different primes to fit your budget. I love the Sigma 50mm art lenses. Just the Sigma art lenses in general are fantastic professional quality lenses for typically half the price that you normally pay. But I also love the Canon 50 1.2L, the Nikon Nikkor 50, I think it's a 1.4. All those are fantastic options. And guess what? If you have 500 bucks, get the 51.4, or if you have 100 bucks, get the 51.8. But either way, this focal length is going to give you the option of cropping where you need to crop. So it's not so wide that you're capturing everything in a scene, and it's not so tight that it's difficult to shoot on in tighter circumstances. It's great for portraits. You can even do, I wouldn't recommend doing super close portraits like headshots with this lens. But what you can do is if you're on a 20 megapixel or a 24 megapixel camera, you could shoot a headshot on this just a little bit wider and then crop in. Just understand that if you get really close on a 50, like for a headshot length, it is going to cause distortion. It's going to look a little bit odd. But the speed of the lens as well, so the wide aperture also allows you to blur things out in the background that would get distracting. So it makes for a fantastic lens in groom prep because oftentimes those rooms are small, they're often fairly dark, and there's oftentimes a lot of clutter going on around the backgrounds. So this lens is going to be ideal, and if there was one lens that I had to choose to photograph probably the entire day, it would be a 50mm prime. Okay, moving on, we have the 100 and the 85, and I actually marked these as blue in the slideshow simply because if you had to pick between these two lenses, I'd probably go with the 100, okay? You already have the super fast prime right here. This is great, and this is gonna be, for the most part, your replacement for the 85 until you get this lens. Now, of course, this is a little bit of a different focal length. This is great for close-ups, but you can still achieve most of what you can with this lens with the 50. The 100 macro, on the other hand, this is one of those lenses that you can't really do what this lens does without it. 100mm macro is going to allow you to get those close-up details. It's going to get you the ring shots, any types of, basically anytime you need to shoot macro on anything. This is a very useful shot during prep when we're oftentimes photographing details, we're getting close up, we're getting, the tie, we're getting all those things. And granted, you can do that on a wider 50mm as well. But if you're gonna have this lens anyway, because let's say you wanna do bride prep where there's a lot of close-up details, then this lens is gonna be very versatile. Not only can you do those close-up details with it, but you can also do fantastic portraits that are gonna look amazing without any distortion whatsoever. So this will handle the portraits that this can in the meanwhile. When you get the room and the budget to upgrade and this is, by the way, the Canon 100mm f2.8 Mark II. This is the 85 Sigma. This is not an art lens. I love actually the Canon 85 1.2L, but it's a budget that price range might not fit your budget. Okay, so that's about a $2,000 lens. This I think was like $600 or $700, somewhere. It was less than $1,000. It was much more approachable. Still fantastic quality. It's a 1.4 lens, and this will let you get those great portraits that are close up with the background just completely smushed out of focus. So that 1.4 wide open look, you get that on an 85. I absolutely love the 85 for portraits. The only thing is, when you're working inside of groom prep, oftentimes this is too tight of a lens to be shooting on. Keep in mind, one last thing I wanted to mention is that I'm giving you guys these focal lengths based on full frame cameras. So if you are on a crop frame camera, the equivalent, let's say you're on a 1.6 crop, your equivalent of this in terms of the framing is gonna be like a 35mm. This guy is more like, I don't know, a 70mm. This guy is like a 50 to a 60mm lens. So keep in mind that I'm telling you guys this stuff based on full frame. So just remember that if you're on a crop sensor camera and you walk into a room with a 50, that's gonna project more like a 75, 80mm lens. And so if it's too tight, that's the reason why. So keep that in mind. I'd recommend when you're investing in lenses, even if you're on a crop sensor camera now, invest in lenses that you're gonna be using on full frame, because eventually you will probably move to a full frame camera. And in that case, your lenses are a long-term investment. That's it for this video. That's our 3 favorite lenses when it comes to groom prep. Hopefully you enjoyed. Let's go on to the next one. Now, I have 4 more honorable lens mentions that, again, are gonna come into play. They're gonna be useful in certain situations when it comes to groom prep, but I'm gonna tell you why they're not kind of on my primary list. Let's start from the top with the 24-70, and I have it attached to my 1DX Mark II, primarily so I could do this. This makes me happy. So this lens is a fantastic lens, and don't get me wrong, it is a staple in a wedding photographer's toolkit. The only thing is it's great in groom prep in giving you a little bit of zoom focal length. So you can still be in the action, you can still get up tight, and you can still shoot close. The problem is when you're shooting on this lens, you're often zooming in and out so quickly that you're not actually paying attention to your background. Now, because it's an f2.8 lens, your background is gonna be much more noticeable and visible, and we find that a lot of our shooters get a lot of junk in the frame when they're shooting with a 24-70, as opposed to if they were just on a 50mm and they were just focusing on composition and those kind of things. So that's the thing to be aware of. When you're getting wide, you're gonna get some stuff in the background. Also, even when you're shooting tighter, you're gonna still be seeing the background in more detail because it doesn't stop open to f1.4 like a prime. It's gonna be at 2.8. Next, the 7200. It's fantastic in groom prep if you are shooting in a larger room and you need to really be able to zoom in and out. You need to stand in a corner and zoom in and out to get candids and that kind of stuff. The room is so big that you don't want to constantly walk around and be in front of everybody. That's great. But that's more of a specialized lens, at least when it comes to groom prep. More often than not, the groom prep rooms are not that big, and a 50mm is totally fine to just kind of work through the room and be shooting candids and all that kind of stuff. You don't need to be in a corner and shooting this long. And even if you had it, the length is a little bit too long to work in most situations. So that's the reason that. Whatever. So moving on, we have the 35. Now I love the Sigma 35 Art. The only issue is that once again, it's a wider frame. This is my in the action lens. So when I want to get those shots that feel like I'm in the action, but I don't want to go to a 24 because I get too much distortion, this lens is absolutely fantastic. The only issue, once again, is in groom prep, you have a lot of junk around those rooms oftentimes, and you're gonna be picking up a lot of background stuff with this lens. So it's a little bit more difficult to use, although it's still great in several situations in groom prep. These are all lenses that still have their purpose. It's just, they're not maybe my favorite ones. The free lens. So this is an old Canon FL 50mm 1.8 lens, actually built quite well. It's all glass elements, kind of nice. But this is just my free lens that I use. I most of the time will use free lensing more for the bride side because I feel like that softer look of a free lens, that soft light bleed flare kind of look, it fits more so with the bride and kind of creating a softer image on that side than with the groom. Although sometimes it is cool to get just nice effects with this. So I will use it from time to time. But again, this is kind of more of an honorable mention versus a staple. So that's 4 other lenses that are gonna come into play during groom prep, but honestly, we covered our 3 favorites and we'd already told you guys if you had just one, which one that would be, and that's the 50mm. So we're done with this video, let's go on to the next one. There are a couple creative must-have accessories for our shooters, and I wanna cover that. So this, number one, first and foremost, is the prism. This is a simple 6-inch, I think, Amlong crystal that you can get on Amazon. Very inexpensive, about 20 bucks. You can see that mine's gone through quite a bit of use and abuse. It's okay though, because it creates kind of interesting effects when you use the edges that are broken. So keep it in good condition or do what I do. Either way, what this is gonna do for you though, is it's gonna allow you to block out any unnecessary junk or add something pleasing to a frame or both. So oftentimes we're shooting in situations where we need to block something just nasty out of the frame. So sometimes, like I remember on the Creative Live set, there was an image where we actually blocked out the pipes on the wall so that we didn't see like the piping on the wall and stuff like that. In groom prep, you're often blocking out clothing or luggage or just other room distractions, but all you're gonna do is bring it up to the lens to block out the area of the frame that has the object, and then you simply turn to add into the frame what you want to reflect. Sometimes you like just the color, but you can actually grab, like let's say you're shooting by a window, you can actually grab part of that outdoor scene if it's a nice and pleasant scene. So for example, if they're getting married by the beach and you have ocean and palm trees outside, you might incorporate that into a shot, not only to block the in-room junk, but also to kind of add something of interest in terms of where they're getting married into the frame. So the prism is great for that. It does a lot there, and we keep that super handy. Next I have, and this is I think out of order, my putty and glue dots. Next is the putty and glue dots. Actually, this is not putty and glue dots, this is number 3. The putty and glue dots I didn't have in my case we are actually upgrading to glue dots because these things are even better. They're little dots of glue, but either way, get putty or glue dots off of Amazon. That's how we pose our rings. So how we place our rings and get them to stand and do things. That's it. That's the magic behind it. So they're a fantastic little item to have in your toolkit because you can do a lot of creative things in terms of posing small details. And some of the time during groom prep, you will be shooting some of those details. So something simple and easy to have in your gear kit. Next is the LED strip light. Now this is great. It comes for, this is the Grip camping light. Again, something small off of Amazon. I think they're like $7 or $8 a piece. And they have AAA batteries inside of them, which last a long, long time. The normal light temperature is somewhere around daylight temperature for this guy. And it's fantastic. You'll notice these 6 lights, they're fantastic for any types of jewelry shots because what they're gonna do is since there's 6 lights there, it's gonna create those sparkles and reflection as all 6 of those lights get reflected off of it. I would generally recommend carrying around 2 of these guys so you can sandwich rings and you can do all that kind of stuff with them. Now, more often than not, it's the lead shooter that's gonna be shooting the ring shots and those close-up details of like say the bride's jewelry, but it's still something great to have if you wanna get a really cool shot of the watch or other things that the groom might have on him. In addition, this guy is a CTO gel. We're going to talk about this in the must-have lighting modifiers and so forth. If you grab this LED and you put this around it, you can just have your assistant. I know this is going to be loud in the mic, but you just wrap this around like so and then turn this on. You get a lovely warm kicker. So they can bring this right up to the left side of the groom's face to kind of create that warm ambient kicker, which we're gonna show you in several shots. Very simple, very easy to do, and very inexpensive. So that's it for a couple creative accessories when it comes to groom prep. Let's go ahead and move on to the next video. My table is filled with gear right now because we're gonna cover our must-have pieces of lighting accessories for second shooters. Now keep in mind, this is for our style of shooting. This is for Lineage photography shooters, and we're gonna teach you how we use all of these different things. But before you guys go out and start buying any of the stuff that we're recommending in this course, I would highly recommend you slow down. Don't just jump onto Amazon and B&H and start buying crap. Otherwise, you're gonna have a lot of stuff that might not fit your style. Instead, buy or better yet, borrow or rent something to try it out. See if it fits your style. Look at what we do in this course. If it's something that you want to do and you want to adopt in your style, then go and buy that piece of gear. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a bunch of stuff that you don't need. So let's start from the top. And the most useful piece of modification technology that I think everybody needs to have is the 5-in-1. What a simple piece of technology. Silver on one side, black on another. It's got a scrim on the inside. This is gonna be your basic go-to when it comes to natural light portraits in controlling light. It's fantastic, it's portable, and we usually get the Westcott variety just because they last a lot longer than the other kinds. And they're only like $10 more. The zippers don't break. They're just a lot better. I also like to do this, and I'm gonna show you guys, or I think it's on the gear list, but we're gonna do this for bride prep. But I also take one where I actually cut a hole right through the center. So not only can you wear this like an amazing lion's mane of reflecting glory, it's actually a fantastic piece of modification gear that you can shoot through to create really soft and nice portraits. So those are the 2 reflectors that I carry with me at all times. Next, second shooters need to have an on-camera flash that has focus assist. That means they're not just using an on-camera manual flash, okay? An on-camera manual flash without focus assist is great. You can do manual flash and all that kind of stuff, and you might not think it's a big deal during the day. And then at nighttime, when you can't focus on anything, then you're gonna have a problem, okay? So a fully featured flash to go on camera that has focus assist is an absolute must. Next, we have 2 off-camera flashes. So the ability to control basically up to 2 off-camera flashes. Now, for us, we use the same flashes that are on camera versus off camera. So for Chris and Justin, my business partners, they prefer the Canon EX600s, the 600 EXRTs, which have the built-in radio triggers so they can go on camera and off camera. And I think they have a new version of that out too. But either way, just any of those totally works for your system. I use the Phottix Mitros Plus. They're great. They're $100 less. They're fully radio controlled. They work with Canon, Nikon. It's a really great third-party option for those of you that don't want to buy the most expensive, basically like Canon or Nikon option out there. But these all have the built-in radio, so they can go on camera or off camera. All right, so at least the ability to control 2 off-camera flashes. Also, a white satin umbrella. Now this guy is the basic shoot-through umbrella. Let me grab it out without dropping anything. So just a basic shoot-through umbrella is fantastic for soft environmental lighting. These things go anywhere. I do have a preference. This guy is like 10 to 20 bucks. I think this guy's like 30 bucks. This is the Westcott variant of it, which is not only a shoot-through, but it also has a black and it's removable. So you can actually use it as a bounce umbrella or a shoot-through umbrella, which is nice. It gives you both options. A little bit bigger, a little bit nicer light quality, and it's very inexpensive, very portable as well. Okay, moving from there, we have a grid or a snoot, or both. If you wanna have both, you can, but really you only need one or the other. This guy is our grid, this is the snoot. Now we recommend Magmod because they're very simple and easy to use. The snoot is gonna pin your light based on how far you pull this out. It pins it to the light source, and you can see us using it in this course. The grid is gonna control light spill. Think of a snoot as a more powerful grid, okay? Most situations, a grid is enough. A few situations, you might need a snoot just to put light exactly right where you want it. Like I think this is what we used in the bazaar scene indoors for the dramatic groom portrait. Okay, and the beautiful thing about the Magmods is they just attach right to the top of the flash head. So very easy to attach via the magnets, and they're nice. They're modular, so you can have whatever. And it does this. Ha, ha. 2 hits, and it folds up, and it's nice and tiny. Okay. A CTO and CTB. So this is a color temperature orange gel. A CTB is a color temperature blue gel. The Magmod kit comes with both. So all you do is you pop out one gel and pop the other one in, and then it operates the exact same way as the other Magmod modifiers, and you just pop it right onto the Magmod, right over the head of the flash. Again, you can use any system that you like. We prefer Magmod because they're simple, they're easy to use, they're elegant solutions that look professional. They're not, masking tape and stuff like that you're putting around. Like you could do a snoot with a cereal box, but that doesn't look very good on a professional shoot when you bust out your cereal box snoot. So that's why. Next, for every off-camera flash that you have, make sure you have a light stand with a bracket. So we just use the simple umbrella brackets. They're 20 bucks. It's a flash head bracket with, it's a cold shoe bracket. I think you can get them like as cheap as 10 bucks, and it just has a slot for an umbrella. So this is the Manfrotto Nano Stand. It's 5001B. They might update the models on these every now and then, but we love these guys because they're light, they're tiny, they go anywhere, and they fit in your luggage, and they're very durable. I think I've had this guy for probably like 4 or 5 years, and it's still going strong. So, lastly, a constant light or an LED. Now, because I'm also a lead shooter, obviously, I have the GL1. The GL1 is a fantastic light that allows you to control and to pin light and to put it anywhere you want it. This is a really great feature, and it gives us a lot of constant light power. But the problem is this guy's 500 to 600 bucks. So as a second shooter, this may not be in the budget for a long, long time. Once it's in the budget, it's fantastic. It creates shots for like first looks, or sorry, for not first looks, first dances, those kind of things. It creates those kind of shots that are amazing. You can pin the light from anywhere. It's a very great creative light. But in the meanwhile, what I'd recommend is you hop onto Amazon. They have these newer LED panels. They're 30 bucks. Get a constant light because they are very useful for lighting in dark scenes, for adding light, adding kickers, like we talked about with the small LED light and so forth. The other option for a specialized light is the ice light. We're gonna talk about these a little bit more later on, but I would just say bring along a constant light. For most of you, that $30 light on Amazon, the $30 newer LED panel is gonna be completely sufficient. That's it for our must-have accessories. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the niceties in better lighting gear that you can kind of enjoy when you have room in the budget to upgrade to. Nice to have lighting gear. What do I mean by that? Well, throughout this entire course and series of courses, we're gonna be demonstrating all of our lighting via simple pocket flashes. Now, there comes a point where that gets a little bit cumbersome. You can still do it, it's totally fine, it'll work, but I want to show you guys pieces of gear that are very versatile, some that are very versatile, some that are a little more specialized, and kind of give you guys an idea of how these would play into making your shooting life a little bit better. And the reason is because many of you are maybe training second shooters, or you're a second shooter now and you want to work into a lead shooter, or many of you have your own studios. So these are fantastic pieces of gear to consider upgrading to that might not be necessary right now, but they're simply nice to have. Let's talk from my favorite and the most versatile, the Profoto B1 and B2. Now this, because it won't fit on the table, actually it will, but it's heavy, is the Profoto B1. The B1 is a large 500 watt second strobe, and this, the Profoto B2, is its little brother. This is a 250 watt second strobe. Now this guy, by the way, has the battery pack built into the head. It's pretty heavy, like 5-6 pounds. And when you put it up on a stand, it becomes a little bit cumbersome, or like say a monopod, for someone to hold. Like an assistant is gonna have a hard time holding that guy in a monopod, and it's a little bit more difficult to travel with and so forth. And that's what makes the B2 kind of our lighting modifier of choice when it comes to wedding work, because it still gives us 250 watt seconds of power, so it's one stop less than the B1, which we can get away with, but it's so much more portable. And because this is the only guy that you put up onto the stand, it's also very lightweight. You can set this guy on the ground, or you can put it on your shoulder. But let's talk about what that means. This flash is roughly 50 to 60 watt seconds of power if you were to measure it the same way that we do these strobes. That means that you need 4 to 5 of these to match the B2, which is 250 watt seconds. You need 8 to 10 of these to match the B1. Now at a certain point, setting up 3 or 4 of these gets a little bit cumbersome. Is it doable? Absolutely. And we're gonna do it. We're gonna show you how to do it for doing large group shots and so forth. But it's much easier to do that with, say, a B2, and also the additional light makes it so that you can modify. So with a light like a pocket flash like this, usually if we're shooting in bright outdoor scenes, if we want to be able to see the light, we can't modify it. The beautiful thing about 250 watt seconds is that you can. And this is our favorite modifier for the Profoto B2 or B1. This is the OCF Beauty Dish Silver 2-foot. So what goes in this little guy right here will open up to a 2-foot beauty dish in less than a minute. It's very simple to set up, and you have a beautiful light. And with either the B1 or the B2, you can get enough light, and it's soft light, onto your subjects. Our other favorite modifier for the Profotos is this guy. This is a hard zoom reflector. And what this does is it throws light, but it also puts a lot of light down on the subject. So when we want really dramatic shots, and let's say we don't want to have to Photoshop out stands, or we need the light to be far away so we don't get it in the frame, this is the perfect modifier for that, for those bright day shots where you don't want the light in the frame of your shot. So those are two options. The other cool thing about both the Profoto B1 and B2 is they also come with modeling lights. So if you turn on this little guy right here, this is the modeling light, which works fantastic for dance floor shots and reception shots. It's a very versatile unit, and you get an amazing piece of gear for the price. The only difference between this modeling light versus like a GL1 is that there is no like throw to this. So like you don't have a zoom feature where you could zoom it out and pin it somewhere. It is what it is. You can put a grid on it, but that's about it. You can put any modifier you would on it, but that's it. Oh, that was the flash button. Want me to do that again? All right. So let's turn this guy off, and let's talk about a couple pieces of a little more specialized gear. This is, again, upgrades that are nice to have. They serve their purpose, but everything else that you have in your toolkit will be able to do the job of these guys, but maybe a little less efficiently. So the GL1, this is probably the first specialized piece that I would actually get, and the reason is simply because of this zoom function. This ability to be able to zoom the light exactly where you need it, so I can actually pin it right to them on the dance floor from 30 feet away, is what makes the light so powerful. It also is actually a pretty powerful LED light, and that zooming function makes it even stronger. But it is a bit more specialized. You generally aren't going to create light portraits with this unless you want that hard edge kind of old school Hollywood look, because it's a Fresnel lens. So it's gonna have that very hard edge shadow, which is cool in some shots, but maybe not the best for close-up portraiture. Whereas this guy, this is the Westcott Ice Light. This is designed by another one of our friends, Jerry Gionis. Let's see. This guy is a fantastic light, I think I just turned it off, when it comes to portraiture. So when you bring this close on a face, it actually creates a really beautiful light. It's daylight balanced. It looks fantastic. The only issue is that there's literally no throw. When I point this to anywhere else, if we get beyond 4 or 5 feet, the light is just not powerful enough. This is as bright as it gets. So it's a little more specialized for that close-up type portrait where, yeah, it is nice in certain situations, but you can definitely do without it. And if there was one between the two of these that I would say is more versatile, I'd say it's the GL1. It's the one that we would have in our kit, and as a second shooter or a lead shooter, you'll find probably more uses for this guy than you would an ice light. But that being said, we could still get away with the modeling light on this one. So long as we didn't need to throw at a crazy distance, or if we have the grid, we can control the light pretty easily with that. And there's maybe only a few situations where we need the power and the zoom of this guy. So again, these are just a few pieces of upgrades, things that I have in my kit that I like using, but they're kind of a little more specialized. The ProPhoto is really the first piece of gear that I would invest in beyond just your standard flashes, because this guy is going to last you through your entire career, and it's useful for literally anything. Indoors, outdoors, groups, solos. Has so many modifiers, so many options there that it's the best option to go to, and then you can consider the more specialized upgrades later on. That's it for this video. Let's go on to the next video. The second shooter's gear guide. In this video, I want to talk through the main points of this gear guide. I'm going to let you all kind of just reference the gear guide and use it. I don't want to talk through every single thing because this video is going to last forever. We've already covered some of the important things as well. And I want to start off by saying that not every studio is going to match our gear guide. This is for lineagers of photography, our studio must-haves, and for when our second shooters want to transition into lead shooting, what we look for them to add to their kit. Now, this list is not completely comprehensive in the sense that not every one of our second shooters has every item on this list when they start. We also look at based on their skill level, and a lot of our lead shooters might not have every single item on the list, but what we look at is their technical ability. Can they pull off what we need them to with the gear that they have? So that is the biggest thing first. Can they consistently create incredible imagery with what they have, or do they need to buy additional pieces? Now, that being said, one of the must-haves for us based on our studio is at least as a second shooter to have a single dual slot full frame camera. What does that mean? That means we're looking for cameras that have 2 memory card slots, because what we want to do is we want to be able to shoot where our images are being duplicated on each card. So at the end of the day, you have a perfect mirror backup of all of the images. Now what we do is the second shooter will take one set of all the cards from the day from every shooter, and the lead shooter is going to take the primary set from all the shooters. So that way, when they leave the location, we have 2 complete sets of images going to 2 different locations for image safety. If, heaven forbid, something happens to one of them, the lead shooter or the second shooter, they get in an accident, whatever it is, we hope that doesn't happen, but if that did happen, our images are safe with the other person, and the likelihood of something happening to both sets of images before they get them back in the studio is very, very unlikely. So that's the big thing for us. Now, there are plenty of cameras that fit this criteria. A full frame dual slot camera you have on the Canon side, the 5DS, the 5D Mark III, the 5D Mark IV. You have the 1DX series, 1DX Mark II. This is the 1DX Mark II. And please, we have second shooters coming into our shoots and they get onto a shoot and they grab their 1DX and they do this kind of crap. Like during the processional. Don't do that. I don't need 200 shots of the bride as she comes down the aisle. Give me 2. I'm good with 2. Turn it off. We don't need that kind of stuff, but what's nice about these is, well, the 1DX Mark II has amazing low light imagery, but it has a lot of other benefits to it. So some of our second shooters do have this camera, but it's not required. Nikon D5, that's their equivalent version of this. You have the Nikon D800, D810. The beautiful thing about all these cameras is that the Mark III is fast becoming a second generation camera. So the Mark IV is coming out. And the Mark II is already like a sub $1,000 camera. This guy is below $2,000 new, I think, almost right now. And you can get it used for fantastic prices. So these dual slot full frame cameras are very approachable. And I would look into getting a used one if you need to kind of fit a budget. But that's the main thing there. On the other side, if people want to transition into lead shooting, we look for backups. So we want to make sure that they have a backup camera, a backup full frame camera. We want to make sure they have backup lenses and other creative lenses. We want to make sure they have additional memory, additional lights. They need to have all these things because now as a lead shooter, they're also accounting for, well, if their second shooter is coming a little bit light on gear, I have stuff that I can, loan or let you use my flashes and that kind of stuff throughout the day. So we kind of look on that as having a more full set of gear. But this gear guide is a great reference in terms of what we're looking for as we go through the course. Again, customize and tailor these things to your studio needs and to the way that you shoot. You might find that you need everything on this list, less than what's on this list, or more than what's on this list based on your specific style. Let's go ahead and move into the next video. In the next chapter, we have front-loaded this entire course with all the awesome. We're gonna go into posing, we're gonna get into shooting. It's gonna be awesome. Just only one chapter on intro. Stick with me because this is the last video, and I have 8 simple tips before going into groom prep to help you all get the best images possible. Starting with number 1, and actually the first 6 of these tips are actually from our communication and planning course. These are things that happen prior to the day of the shoot, and I'd highly recommend if you haven't seen that course to go see it because it's our entire planning process. It's how we set up for a successful shoot, and it's very awesome, very detailed too. So, number 1, is there anything specific to the groom that is important to them? This could be many different things. It could be a person, it could be a thing, let's say a family heirloom, a special watch that's been handed down, or maybe the bride might even tell you in secret, hey, I have a special gift I'm giving to the groom, I want you to get photographs of that. But you want to ask that question, is there anything that you want me to look out for to make sure I get images of? We've had clients tell us things like, my dad has cancer and I would love to get as many images as possible of him and me doing things with him and so forth. And that kind of leads me to one of the next tips. But number 2 is to gather the details prior to the shoot. So again, this is during that talk through part so you can save time. What do? We say, hey, when we get there in the morning, it'd be great if we have all your details laid out. And they're probably not gonna know what details mean. So you say, like for the bride side, we have your dress, your shoes, your jewelry. For the groom side, we have your suit, your tie, your cufflinks, your shoes. Those shots that you want detail shots of ready to go. They might not want detail shots, but if they do, that saves you from having to walk around and collect everything and waste time in the morning. Number 3 and number 4 are related. First, who are the VIPs? And 4 is getting them involved in prep. And this has to come beforehand. You're gonna ask them, who are your VIPs? And what that means is, I wanna know your family members that are close to you, your friends that are very close to you. Tell me a little about the family and what is going on so I can document and create the images that mean the most to you. And that's when they might say things like, my dad has cancer, or grandpa's gonna be there and he's getting really old, and this type of stuff that allows you to focus on the VIPs during the day. But the next thing you wanna ask is, can we get them involved in groom prep? Why? Because when you show up on the day of, if grandpa's not there, he's coming to the ceremony later on, there's no way you're gonna get him there for groom prep. It's gonna take him an hour just to get there. So these are things that you'd have to say, hey, do you want them to be a part of your prep? Do you want them to be there in the room and helping you to get ready and them getting ready on their own, that kind of stuff? Help the groom at times to kind of set up for success, because oftentimes they might have an idea and a plan of what they want. More often than not, they don't. They need a little bit of guidance in that area. Moving on to tip number 5, which is once they've told you about what they're doing and who's gonna be there, is to suggest or ask, are there gonna be any activities? It's always fun when the groom and the groomsmen get together and play cards, when they play poker, when they watch TV, when they do things, they hang out by the pool. Those kind of things are fantastic for documentary images, and they tell the story, and it's more than just a couple portraits of them standing in the mirror. So I always suggest, it's great to have activities. Let's go to the bar, let's do something. Do something that you guys would actually do, not something just for fake images, but something you would actually do, and we will document the process of that. And what have we done? We set ourselves up with the VIPs, with the important family members, with everybody there, and we've already set an activity, and it's just primed for us to go in and capture amazing images of all the journalistic moments that are gonna happen. Number 6, this is again the last piece that you want to communicate prior to showing up, is to have the room cleaned and reset. It's very easy to call down a room service and to have them come up and reset the room prior to your arrival. and it's great. They're gonna move the luggage, they're gonna reset the bed, they're gonna do all the stuff and put all the towels back, and they're gonna make the room presentable again so that when you show up, it's not an absolute nightmare. If you do show up and it's a nightmare, then just quickly call down a room service, see if they can come up and help out real quick to get it all reset. Number 7, before you begin shooting, look at your light. So if you have these nasty room lights mixed with daylight that's coming through, and it just is unbalanced and you have lots of mixed light and it doesn't look good, see if you can turn off the room lights. Now, if the room goes completely black, that's a problem. But more often than not, you have plenty of daylight coming into the room, and if you close off or turn off the actual room lights, close off, that's a Chinese word. If you turn off the actual room lights, then you prevent that mixed lighting. You shoot with one dominant light source, which is that daylight, and you're gonna get much better images out of that. You're gonna find that you have to do less black and whiting. So it's a very simple thing to make sure that you get better images. Now, if tungsten, if that room lighting is your only light and it's not looking good, that's where you're gonna pop a flash onto the camera, put a gel that's tungsten balanced, and help that existing room light to be a little bit better. So you're gonna shoot with your flash, adding a little bit to that additional tungsten light that's in the room, and just kind of balancing it and getting a little bit better quality so you don't have deep dark shadows and eyes and that kind of stuff. Last little tip, before you all begin shooting, spend just a few minutes observing the group, and not like in a creepy way, non-creepily, not like in the corner like I don't want that kind of stuff. What I want you to do is to, every groomsman, and that entire wedding party is going to have their own dynamic. Some of them are more goofy. Some of them are more serious. Some of them are in between. Some of them are more cool. Some of them are more laid back. Either way, spend a couple minutes just observing what they're like when you first get there, as you're setting up, as you're taking things out. And that'll help you to dictate what you have them do. For example, if I have an older, more serious bunch, I'm gonna shoot journalistic and documentary throughout the whole thing. And I probably won't ask them to do jumping shots. But if I have a group of guys that are like screwing around and they're having a good time, and I'll be like, hey, do you guys wanna do a jumping shot? They'll be like, yeah, man, that'd be so awesome. I wanna do jumping. Because that's fun and unique to them. You've done it a million times, but it's fun to them, and that's what's important. So observe the group dynamic before you begin participating in that dynamic. That's it for our 8 simple tips. Let's move on to the next chapter and let's bring on the sexy.